G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Stu, that's Dill, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We're back once again partnering with GameDay Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. Dill, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. Team List Tuesday has dropped and it's now time to take a deep dive into our Round 5 GDS squads. Before we get there, how did Quasi's Killers go in Round 4?
Yep. G'day, mate. G'day, viewers and listeners. It's great to see a few people already in the chat. I believe Sif Kanger and Melissa were here about half an hour prior to us going live, so that's unreal. Yeah, mate, Round 4, once again, I feel like week in, week out, I say I couldn't quite break that top 20 across any of the comps. Same issues, picking up a couple of pods across a couple of teams and then not quite getting it all together in obviously the main ones, so the starter and champion. I'm sitting just outside the overall top 20 though in champion and challenger, so got a bit of work ahead of me. I think a couple of 100 points here or there, and I'll be in that top 20. So I'm sort of looking for a big week here. But the big news is I did win my GDS Cup matchup, so I am progressing into Round 2. I know that's a little bit of a sore spot for you, mate. Do you want to let everyone know how you went in the GDS Cup?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations, mate, for progressing to Round 2. Anyone else in the chat make it through? Let us know if you did, or let us know as well if you're joining me on the sidelines and are going to be a spectator from this point forward. Yeah, look, I went down to Talid's Turtles, a name that we mentioned that we hadn't seen before on the platform, but lo and behold, there he is in the top 20 come the end of the week for the starter squads, and that was my Round 1 opponent. So Talid's Turtles, well done. You got the better of me, and that's me for the GDS Cup done. So look, no pressure on me now. I get to pick my starter squads without any worry, any concern about the what the GDS Cup brings. So I'll be trying to give you all the advice that you need to move further in that competition. But yeah, smooth sailing for me. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm worrying about the top 20 leaderboards now. My focus is back on prize cards. It was one and done for me. But that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Well done to those of you that made it through into Round 2. In better news, slightly better news at least, I'm still in the top 20 across a couple of those competitions. I think 14th and 16th through Challenger and Champion. So it's not all bad news, not all doom and gloom on this side of the show. But yeah, congratulations, mate. Well done. And yeah, I think, Mel, you're in the chat. You got through, didn't you? Let us know if you did. Adam Gregson's here as well. G'day, Adam. Thanks for joining us, mate. Yeah, Dill, let's the sooner we move on, the better.
Yeah, and we will touch on the GDS Cup a little bit later on and look at what the Round 2 of GDS Cup does bring. But don't forget, we're coming to you live every Wednesday night, so make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel, FantasyBros AU, so that you don't miss a thing. We'll discuss all the important start sits of the week and reveal who we are starting for our starter squads, which obviously for me, super important for a number of reasons, and we'll talk through why soon. And if you haven't already, make sure you jump over to our other socials. We'll be on YouTube, obviously, but then we'll be on TikTok and Insta as well, bringing you everything that you need for each and every round of the NRL season. So go ahead, jump over to @FantasyBros AU. We'll have plenty of content and we'll have some pack giveaways. And as we teased last week, we definitely still have the pack attack coming. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming really soon. We've got a big thing happening with GDS, and I hope I haven't said too much already.
A very big announcement coming soon, that's for sure. Look, everyone, it's not too late to get started in GameDay Squad. I know you probably missed out on the GDS Cup, but the good thing about GameDay Squad is you can obviously win weekly prizes as well as season-long prizes as well. Even if you've got some friends that are pretty keen in the footy and like opening some packs and putting together a fantasy team, get them involved in GameDay Squad as well. They can do that pretty simply by downloading the app or going onto the website. And when they do so, they can create an account and use the promo code FBRL25. That'll give them 3 9-player common packs. If you're a new viewer as well, make sure you use that code and you can get that same reward there. So why wait? Get your friends involved. Great opportunity to win some awesome cash and pack prizes. Sign up now and join us. It is plenty of fun, and we've got a great little Discord community happening as well. If you're not yet on that Discord community, make sure you sign up and join in on the fun there. It's a great way to get to know the members as well as put up some cards on the transfer market and see who other people are trading or selling as well. Right, Adil, let's get into the nitty gritty. What's plans for today?
Yeah, before I do that, though, just talking about trading, Sif Kanga, one of the first ones here, he's already chucked up a trade offer there. He's got a gold Humphreys if anyone is keen. So not just the Discord, but you can also get some trades happening through the YouTube channel as well. Great to see.
Beauty.
Thanks, Sif Kanga, for joining us. Yep, today, as always, we'll bring our Wednesday evening show. We preview who we think are the best players for the round across all positions. We'll reveal who we're playing in our all bronze starter squads. And then, as always, at the end, you'll have a chance to win some cards through our Bro Down Showdown segment. And look, Mel, I know you've been giving me a bit of stick lately for continuing to stick with Hines, but you'll just have to wait and see whether I'm going to pick my man again or whether I'm going to pivot and go somewhere else for this week's Bro Down Showdown. And as I mentioned as well, the GDS Cup, that round one has been run and won, obviously, and we've moved from the top 512 coaches down to 206. So congrats to everyone that made it to round two. Remember, if you are in round two, you don't need to do anything except set your starter squad. The GDS boys have organised your matchup, so you can check that over on the Discord, as we said, or you can go to the help page for more info on who you are playing against. And remember, if you are the last coach standing, you win the 33rd pick in the 2025 GDS Rugby League prize card draft. So that's a massive prize at the end of that. Really looking forward to that. Alrighty, let's jump straight into our positional previews. There's a lot of injuries. I believe I read something earlier that was something like 20 regular starting players out this week due to injury. But we've obviously got a couple of players coming back. So starts and sits are going to be pretty important this week. Before we jump into the hooker spot, I just got the 24-hour mail for tomorrow night's game, and Teague Wilton has been ruled out. So Burns comes into the second row there. So if anyone was looking at Teague Wilton, you've got plenty of time now to go and pivot away from that game there, from that edge forward. So maybe a couple of our options a little bit later might help you there. But let's start with the hooker spot. We've obviously jumped between Blake Brayley and Harry Grant for majority of the first four rounds. Is one of those players someone that you're sticking with, mate, or are you going to look somewhere else?
Yeah, you've mentioned a few times about the positional roulette, maybe in the second row, maybe in the centers as well. I'm starting to think the hooker position is the true roulette position, or the dart throw position, where you've just got to spin that wheel or throw that dart and see what sticks. You know, there's not a lot of difference between some of the top performers in terms of averages. If we sort the hookers by average, we do see Wade Egan, the only player to have averaged above 50 points. He's out there nicely in the lead on just shy of 55 points. We then got Starling, Appy, Blake Brayley, and Damien Cook really close in the 45s. And then JMK, Peter Mamazoulos. Then Harry Grant rounding out sort of that top 10 down there at 41 points. So, you know, it used to be the tried and tested, just plug Harry Grant in if you weren't sure. And, you know, he'd give you pretty solid base and probably jag an attacking stat or two, and you'd be happy with his 55 or 60 and an upside of 70 point score. But we're just not seeing that from him at the moment. I know it's only the start of the season, and the Storm always sort of just get into their work slowly, and they're an end of the season team. They don't necessarily, you know, hit the ground running at the start. They know it's a long season and they're here for the grand final. But yeah, it's definitely not coming together for Harry Grant. So for me, that dart throw roulette position, I'm just going to stick to the tried and tested, the ever reliable, but the never impressive Blake Brayley. He's, I think, second most tackles for the competition at the moment, but his tackle efficiency is what's really important here in that hooker position. It's not like Harry Grant isn't playing good footy, but he's got a lot of demerits next to his name, which is obviously taking a bit of a blow to his score. So we've seen two nice mid-50 scores from Blake Brayley at the start of the season. He then responded with two mid-30s. But I think this game against the Raiders is going to make sure that his tackle numbers rise considerably. We've seen the Sharks have a couple of pretty convincing games. They've been able to spread the ball wide, and they haven't had to do too much defending. I'm thinking it's a bit of a bounce-back game for the Raiders here, a bit more tackling involved for those middle players. So I can see Blake Brayley getting back amongst, you know, those 50-plus tackles, and any runs that he makes, and a short baller to Adam Fanua-Blake close to the line is just going to be a bonus for me. So hopefully, 50 points, lock that in. Harry Grant's a great upside play, but he's just not getting it done at the moment. Where are you leaning, mate?
Yeah, before I talk about who I'm picking, is that bounce back for the Raiders a hopeful thing for you, or is that a more what you definitely think they're going to be able to do?
Bit of column A, bit of column B. We saw them start fantastic over in Vegas and then against the Broncos in round 2. And we were sitting there thinking, are the Raiders a sneaky chance of a top 8 spot here? They've been written off all preseason, but look at the footy they're playing. Rewind back to round 3 and round 4. They look anything but that team from the first fortnight. So they're obviously capable of some good footy. It wasn't a fluke over in Vegas and then in round 2, but gee, they were well beaten in their last 2 matches. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for a bounce back. And these two teams have played off in finals over the last couple of seasons as well. So there's not a lot between them. I think it'd be a pretty tight game through the middles. And that's why I'm going with Blake Brayley.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I tend to agree that the hooker spots are in a little bit of all sorts. Like you said, Egan's currently leading the hookers in terms of average and the overall points that he has scored. But obviously, he is on a bye this week, so I'll be looking elsewhere. The other thing is that when he is back, from the bye, that we've touched on it a few times. He's just so injury prone, and he's always just that one game away from a head knock, a shoulder, or whatever else. So yeah, you've got to play him with a little bit of risk. Obviously, there's a bit of reward there at the moment, and while the Warriors are attacking quite well, he's definitely an option. We've seen him, carve up the middle a couple of times and have a nice couple of offloads and passes at the line, etc. So yeah, I want to keep an eye on Egan for sure. I'm always nervous playing Warriors players as a supporter of them as well. I know that heart sometimes overcomes the head, and you make some silly decisions based on heart. But this week I'm going to land on someone like JMK, and I guess you have a look at those rankings and you see someone like Cook and Appy up near the top there. But the concern for me, and what we've talked about a few times, is their number of minutes they're spending on the field. They're both averaging around 60 minutes per game. Harry Grant as well, he's improved his position in the rankings. However, he's still not a lock for that spot, based on those demerits. And I'll talk about some of the issues there in a moment. So I'm going to spin that roulette wheel and I'm going to land it on JMK, Jeremy Marshall-King. I know he's been averaging 70 minutes per game, so it's still not that 80-minute hooker that we've seen in the past that we like. He is coming back from injury, and there's been a few changes there at the Dolphins as well. Obviously, a coach change there too. But I think, for that 70 minutes, he's averaging 44 points per game. That's 10 less than Egan at the moment. But JMK's made the most tackles of any hooker, 192, and he's only missed 9 compared to Egan's 14 and Grant's 10. So I think he's still doing well and keeping the points that he's racking up. The thing for me, though, is JMK hasn't had an attacking stat yet this season. Last season, he averaged 1 try assist every 2 games. So I still feel like that's something that's building in that team and something that's yet to come for JMK. And this could be the game that he gets a few more attacking stats on top of his pretty good base. He comes up against a Titans team this week that have allowed the most points to hookers so far this season, averaging 50 GDS points to starting hookers as well. So if he can get that 70-plus minutes again and potentially get a try assist on top of his base, I think it's going to be happy days for JMK.
Yeah, don't mind that shout at all, mate. Really interesting looking at his minutes. You did mention they've been a bit all over the place. He's had a 70-minute game, an 80-minute game, a 60-minute game, and a 70-minute game. There's really no consistency. I don't know if there are many injury effects in there. I've been obviously watching him or the Dolphins too closely, but there's no real consistency there in the minutes. Interestingly, when he did play the 80 minutes, it was actually his lowest score of the season. So something to consider there. But he obviously had a nice game last week against the Broncos in that 70 minutes, 49 tackles and a couple of tackle breaks. But spin that wheel, throw that dart, and see who you land on, guys. Those people that stick with Grant, probably going to have egg on my face again for jumping off someone with his sort of caliber.
Yeah.
But I think that's enough for the hookers. Just before we move on to the middle forwards, Mel's just taking a stab there at you, Dill, saying that Warriors have a bye this week. But Payne Thompson, he's pretty keen on that Jamie Humphries Gold Sif Kanga. So you two should get a trade organised here in the chat. Let's get one done live on stream. That would be pretty cool. Dill, round 5 middles. We've got a whole heap of names there on the screen.
Yeah.
Normally we'd sort of be comfortable with 5 or 6 names and pick from there, but the middle position is a little bit more open than usual, and we've got a whole heap of players sort of exceeding expectations, and then a couple of players probably not quite meeting the preseason expectations that we had for them or what we're familiar with in terms of last season. I want to kick us off with your definites and then a couple of guys that you've got on the fringe that you're looking at playing this round.
Yep. So I think for both of us and for most coaches, the definites are obviously Payne Haas and Terrell May. They seem to be cut from the same cloth. They're absolute beasts. They get through tons of work and they have that attacking upside. We saw May get 80 minutes last week against the Warriors, which was pretty unreal. He almost bagged a try on top of that. He just lost the ball just over the line, but I think he had about 4 blokes on top of him while he was trying to do that, and he still, ran away with 79.2 GDS points in 80 minutes. So for me, those two are pretty much set and forget every week. I don't think there's any reason to get off them at all. Obviously, when the buys come around, then we've got to look elsewhere. But I think Haas and May are just pretty clear cut for me. It's the next 3 positions, the one on the field and then the 2 on the bench that I think are going to be interesting this week. We've got players like Adam Fanua-Blake, Yo, Watson, Tino, McInnes, King. Max Plath has moved back to lock, which could be a decent shout as well for anyone that's keen on Maxi Plath. Horsburgh, again, playing at lock. There's a whole host of players that you could be looking at there, and I feel like there could be a whole host of pods. I'm still going to stick with Yo and Adam Fanua-Blake just for one more week. Adam Fanua-Blake's still scoring over a point a minute that he's on the field. Obviously, those minutes have decreased a little bit like we expected, like he did say at the start of the season that they would, but he's still being pretty efficient with his time on the field. So I think I'll stick with him for one more week and hope that maybe your Blake Brayley puts him into a space and he gets over the line, so we both benefit there. And Yo, again, I'm going to stick with him for one more week. He's consistent. He's currently sitting 7th overall on the middles in terms of averages. So I think I'll just stick with him one more week. But I think you're going to talk about someone that might be taking over sort of his role or his points, from the Panthers, and we'll potentially look at that pod soon. But my 5th spot at the moment, I'm tossing up between 3 players, and I'm going to stick with Cameron McInnes at the moment, but I really love Watson and I really love Plath as well. But for me, McInnes this season, he's averaging 57 points in base per game, so that's massive. And he's only losing 5 points in demerits per game. So for me, I really like that consistency. He's sort of playing around that 60-minute at the moment average. So he's basically a point a minute, which again, I'm pretty happy with that from my middles. He also comes up against a Raiders side that just allowed Ruben Cotter 55 points playing at lock. And we know McInnes is going to play majority of his game at lock, if not all of it. So I'm pretty keen to roll out McInnes in like what you said, would be a pretty big game through the middle probably, and probably a lot of tackling there. So there should be a lot of base stats for Cameron McInnes.
Yeah, he's someone that really excelled last round through that Kale Iro injury. So they had obviously a bit of a reshuffle, had to move a number of parts around, and McInnes benefited with a few extra minutes there in the middle. He played 75 minutes and made 60 tackles, and he's an absolute monster when he gets those sorts of minutes. But the last couple of seasons, he just hasn't been required. He hasn't been needed to play those big minutes. And it's been the same case again at the start of this season, 53, 63, 59 minutes. He goes above a point a minute, and if he got anywhere above that 70, he'd be an absolute lock week in, week out. So I'm just not certain that he sees those minutes. I know that the last 2 matches they've played have been a little bit easier than maybe their first 2 matches in terms of strength of opposition. Sorry, his 2 lowest scores this season have been against the teams that have been less strong in terms of not against the Panthers or the Bulldogs. So he seems to make those big tackle numbers against the tough teams and maybe spend a little bit more time on the sidelines, like Adam Fanua-Blake against some of those easier teams, like we saw in the Cowboys and the Rabbitohs. So I think it's a good idea picking these types of blokes in the tougher matchups. On paper, it looks like a really bad play, but it just means, far more work through the middle, plenty of tackles, and we know he's an absolute tackle bot. What that also proved from the weekend is that if there's any injury in the back line, McInnes is probably going to be the guy that benefits the most through some extra minutes through the middle there. So, I like that upside play, and we know he's going to put in a shift. He very rarely gets injured, although his face seems, battered and bruised every single match. He's always got that sort of 50 or a 60 tackle mark next to his name. I'm not currently playing McInnes in my sides. I am sticking with Haas, with Terrell May, with Isaiah Yo for another week like you, and Adam Fanua-Blake as well. my fifth option today is going to be this week is going to be Connor Watson.
Yeah.
We know he didn't play last round after that head knock, and he only had that shortened match in the previous game where he got that nice early try assist and was still on track getting through his normal amount of work, but then he got knocked out with that category 1 and had that mandatory 11-day stand down. So obviously didn't turn out again last week, but his role in those first couple of matches was really impressive. He was banging out 80 minutes, but it wasn't just at hooker. He was moving into that sort of hybrid role when Zach Docker-Clay came on, and he was running a lot more of the footy as well. He runs a lot when he's at hooker. He's still making plenty of tackles, but he's running the ball even more when he's playing lock. He's an absolute competitor. Him and Teddy sort of are putting that team on their shoulders at the moment. They've obviously lost a lot of troops. The team's not as good. They're not expected to go as well as previous seasons, but he's turning up each and every week. And yes, he's obviously a candidate for a head knock. He's that sort of smaller and shorter body sort of playing through the middle. He's obviously very powerful and can break a tackle, but yeah, he's a guy that I really enjoy playing and can rack up some fantasy points pretty quickly through tackle breaks and plenty of numbers. He's ripping in as much as he is in the first minute as he is in the 80th minute. So yeah, I'm happy to put some faith in him again this round. You alluded to the Panthers battle. We talk about Isaiah Yeo being a must, and he was one of the most outstanding middle player last season in terms of a per game average. And this season, it's anything but. Yeah, he's slowly climbing back up, but still 7th on that list. And the man that's playing alongside him in that team is looking a little bit more impressive. We obviously saw Lindsay Smith make his debut for the Kangaroos last season, and the leadership that Yeo has instilled in him and Ivan Cleary in that Panthers forward pack, particularly with the loss of James Fisher-Harris, means he's really come on in leaps and bounds. And look, he's been massive in the last couple of rounds. It was his first match off the bench, actually, the match just gone, but he still played 59 minutes. He scored 71 points through 46 tackles, 3 tackle breaks, and 2 offloads. So he just is an absolute workhorse. Like we know Isaiah Yeo is. Isaiah Yeo does get the 80 minutes, but the big difference between their two games is that Lindsay Smith doesn't ever have to think about passing the ball. He tucks it under his arm. He just belts it up through the middle, and we've seen that he can break tackles and offload the ball as well. We know that Isaiah Yeo plays that really nice link-up role with the halves, but that means he's not taking as many runs. So it's just something to watch here with Lindsay Smith. I like that off the bench for the first, he's on the bench for the first 20, and then he might see the rest of the match out. I think that's a great role for him, and something to keep an eye on moving forward. This might be the last time you see me with a Yeo in my team, and we might have a Lindsay Smith next week. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I do love it. And I think what we're seeing from Yeo is kind of similar to what we saw from Jake Trbojevic. He had that really good upside a few years ago in terms of fantasy, and we loved what he did with ball in hand. And then he sort of faded and he became just that link-up player, and he just caught and passed the ball. And I feel like I'm seeing that with Yeo again, and he's not scoring as many points because of that. And as you say, I really like the 60 minutes straight type role that Lindsay Smith comes out and bangs out. And those, you can't go past that number. If you're scoring above a point a minute and you're playing for 60 minutes, then you've obviously got to look at that. Just on a couple of other players there as well, Tino's someone that we were really high on the last couple of weeks, and he's really thrown out a couple of disappointing scores. Even with a try, he still wasn't able to crack 50 points again. So it's probably someone that we're moving away from because of the missed tackles, because of the demerits. I think it's 18 in 3 games.
18 in 3 games, only Tom Gilbert ahead of him with 19. We compare that to blokes like, AFB, he's only missed 4. Watson's missed 4. McInnes has missed 4. May 3. Haas 2. Tino 18. That's there's no surprise that we've got these guys ranked so far above, given how many points you do lose for that missed tackle. So Tino, great player to watch. But yeah, it's the demerits. He's a bit lazy, just sort of hangs out those 2 arms and doesn't wrap that player up. But it's not like it leads to a line break or anything. There's plenty of other blokes to mop up his work, but he's not making those tackles. He's missing out on plenty of points. So not in my side until he can turn that area of his game around.
And just lastly, the reason that I'm probably not going with Watson this week is I'm just a little bit concerned about the Rabbitohs' defence through the middle with the hookers. They've only allowed 37 or an average of 37 points to hookers this season so far. Again, small sample size like always, but 37 points to hookers. We know that Watson does move to lock for a while, but that's just a little bit concerning for me. That 37 has them ranked sort of middle of the field, maybe even slightly lower. So I want something with a little bit more upside based on the stats so far. But I think, yeah, Watson's there and thereabouts. He's probably my sixth option, and I'll probably play him across a couple. But I think just for me, there's a bit of a safer approach in McInnes at the moment. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past anyone else that want to play Connor Watson. All right, that's enough about middles. Let's jump into edges. We've spun the roulette again with edges, and I think we're starting to land on some pretty consistent players. I feel like maybe as the weeks progress and the rounds progress, we're starting to find a little bit of consistency there. Who are the two blokes that you're starting in the edge position?
Yeah, Jacob Preston. His move to the left edge really paid off in a big way last week. He scored a try. He set another one up in that really dominant display over the Sharkies. You know, they didn't even have Burton, no kick out, but the Dogs are still moving the ball a lot to the left-hand side, and with Curran on the right, Preston obviously moved over to the left with no kick out, and his line running is just outstanding. He's breaking tackles, or he's committing a couple of defenders, and the ball's going out the back. And Bronson Cherry, cashed in as well outside him with the big score too. So I don't see that changing a lot until obviously kick out comes back. But yeah, Preston didn't start so well, and I probably played him in those first 2 weeks where he wasn't amazing, and I've moved off him. But yeah, that move to the left has been awesome. The Dogs love moving that way. The Knights are down both of their starting back rowers, so they don't have Dylan Lucas and Kai Pearce-Paul this round. So although they'll still have some decent guys there who can tackle and make some decent shots in defence, there's certainly no starters in Lucas and KPP. So I can see Preston continuing his run of form there on the left, and it wouldn't surprise me either to see him crash over the line and score another try. But yeah, he seemed quite a bit more hungry, getting a bit more of better ball on the left, rather than he just seemed to be getting the ball turned under on the right-hand side and running into 3 or 4 blokes. But he was really targeting that small half on the left-hand side of the field. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing him until Kickout's back, and then reassess if he moves back over to the right. But yeah, I think he'll be a pretty popular play alongside Eli Katoa from the Storm. It's probably going to be my second edge. It'll be between him or Beau Fermor. I'm liking what both of them are doing. They're getting through plenty of work, and they both play in those teams that have some pretty high attacking upside. We've got Eli Katoa running up against a edge combination of Ben Trebojevic and Lukey Brooks. They combined for 8 missed tackles against the Eels last week. How many are they going to combine for against a red-hot Melbourne Storm side this weekend? I'm licking my lips, looking at Eli Katoa on that right-hand side. Yeah, we don't have Jerome Hughes. We saw Tyron Wishart run the ball a lot more than we would have liked, and that sort of stifled Munster and Pappenhausen and Grant at times as well. But yeah, Eli Katoa, so damaging on that right-hand side. Wishart will use him. And yeah, running at 2 smaller blokes, or 2 blokes that have missed plenty of tackles this season. Yeah, Eli Katoa probably is going to find a spot in 3 or 4 of my sides this round.
Yeah, I love it. And just on Eli Katoa, I'm also playing him. We've seen that Jerome Hughes has actually been named on the extended bench in the jersey 22. So you never it could be a little cheeky late inclusion of Jerome Hughes into that side, which I think only bolsters Katoa's GDS scoring ability. So I think he's a lock for me as well, based on what you said. And as well, look, he had a massive first game against the Eels. Since then, he's been restricted to about 45 GDS points. But that first game, because we know he's got that scoring ability, he's got that upside of 70 plus. And it's just about him having that opportunity with that line running, and then chasing down a kick. We've seen him jump up for bombs before and get down with a try as well. So there's plenty of opportunity for him, I think. Up against a Manly side that they've been playing pretty well. They've had some ups and downs, and they've been pretty well at restricting edge forwards so far this season. However, we did see a 65 and a 57 against them from Young and then Bateman, respectively. So they've definitely got that in them to allow those big scores as well. Now, I love Jacob Preston. I'm playing in every other competition except for starter, and that is because I do not have a bronze card of Jacob Preston. I do not know how that has happened. I've got almost every single other bronze card except him. him and one other player that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. So if you are in the chat and you have a Jacob Preston, I'm sure we could come up with a deal there for me to get him into my squad. If not, I'm going to run with Angus Crichton this week. I think he's ready for a big game. We've seen him go about his business and slowly building on his GDS score each week. And his scoring is coming through mainly his base and power game. He's averaging 43 in base, 11 in tackle breaks in terms of GDS points, and then 6 in GDS offloads per game. So it's all in his base and power. We haven't seen too many attacking stats from him this season. He's only had 1 try assist and then 2 line breaks across his 4 games. Compare that to last season where we saw him averaging 1 try every 2 games and then 1 try assist every 3 games. I think he's really got that opportunity to step up now. As you said, the Roosters have been sort of dominated by Teddy and Connor Watson. And Angus Crichton's probably got that opportunity to also help them out a little bit. We've seen Teddy have plenty of line breaks, plenty of tackle breaks. And I think it's time for Angus Crichton to get on the back of that as well and help out some of those boys. So I think he's got that opportunity. The other thing I went back, had a look at the records. He's got a pretty good record against the Rabbitohs in terms of fantasy points. He averages 63 fantasy points in the 5 times that he has played them. So he seems like the Bunnies, there's a bit of that crosstown rivalry that happens, and he sort of steps up for that game. So if I don't get a Preston, I'm going to run with Angus Crichton. He would be my 3rd option for the week for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago where he was probably the form edge player in the game, and everyone was trying to get his bronze card. And if you didn't have an Angus Crichton, you were sort of getting left behind last season. So we know what he's capable of. He's just not, finding that same amount of attacking freedom. Probably, the change in personnel for that Roosters team is obviously playing a bit of a role there. But he's, that last score he just got on the weekend, he showed signs of what he could produce. He only missed the 1 tackle. He offloaded the ball 5 times. Before that, he'd missed 12 tackles in 3 games and only a couple of offloads. So, hopefully that was a sign of things to come, and I don't mind that play whatsoever. He's certainly on the radar now. We've got him on that screen there in front for everyone to see, and you're even playing him in your starting team. So, that's a nice little, surely probably a bit of a pod play there, but I reckon even if you get a Preston, still run with him and or at least in 1 or 2 teams, and then we can talk about it next week again as well and see if that was a good idea or not. Someone that I just want to mention very quickly is definitely not attractive. He's not even an edge back rower on real rugby league, but Toby Couchman is someone that could just get you a solid 50 to 55 points, and you don't really have to worry about these low 40s that a number of these dominant edges are pumping out without any sort of attacking stats. He's been unreal for the Dragons, and his work rate is through the roof. He's getting plenty of minutes, and I think the Dragons are down on a couple of troops there this weekend as well. And it looks like Couchman's in line for plenty more work. It won't be attractive, it won't be pretty, but wouldn't it be fun for someone to play him and he falls over the line and scores a meat pie and gets a 60 or a 70? Wouldn't that be outstanding? I don't think his player percentage will be very high at all, but just someone who's creeping up there on those edge forward averages, and he's not even an edge forward in real life. So he's even above Angus Crichton and Haumole Olakau'atu in terms of averages. There you go. And Haumole's probably been in my side all season, and I would have been much better off if I'd just played Toby Couchman. Who would have thought?
It'd be probably the first time that anyone's cheered for Toby Couchman to get over the line outside of a Dragon supporter. So I'd love that. I'd love to be sitting on the couch watching that for sure. All righty, let's jump across to our halves, and I'll get you to kick off again, mate. We'll throw it out there. We are going the same 3 halves at the moment, and I think they're pretty clear, but let's talk through. So who you've got and why?
Yeah, Cleary, first of all, he obviously returns from that HIA and that 11-day stand down from that pretty nasty knock in that collision with Jerome Hughes and when he landed on the floor. So good to see that he's been named and obviously come through that quite well. And fingers crossed he gets through the game again. It was pretty bad to see. And it's bad to see anyone sort of reacts in a way like that through a head knock. So great to see him named. It's always bad to see when someone doesn't get named after that sort of 11 days. There's always sort of those lingering issues. So yeah, glad to see Cleary's been named. footy's a lot better when Nathan Cleary's running around, and so is my GDS team. He comes straight back into a really soft matchup with the Cowboys. And the Panthers haven't even won since week 1. I don't know when the last time they were on a 3-game losing streak, but they're certainly not going to want to make it 4. And they're far too proud, particularly the two Clearys there in coach and son. So I think Nathan's going to return with a big bang here. He would have watched last week's performance and seen how poor they were in the first half. And even without him, they showed signs of life in the second half. But losing to the South Sydney Rabbitohs team down on a number of troops themselves probably wasn't on the bingo card for the Penrith Panthers this season. So Cleary's going to play a big part. They're averaging plenty of points against the Cowboys' left-hand side. That's their weak side in defence. So Nathan Cleary's going to demand the ball a lot. We know that he's a superstar player, and if he gets through injury-free, there's no reason why he can't score the most points this round. I've also got Nicho Hynes and Jaden Campbell. Hynes really hasn't quite had that big blow-up game just yet. It's probably, he's had 2 disappointing games back-to-back against Manly and the struggling Cowboys, where we probably expected a little bit better showing. He's showing signs, but he's probably not putting together that 80-minute performance yet. We know he's capable of racking up fantasy points pretty quickly. I still think there's plenty of points in this match, although it will be a bit of a grind with the forwards. I think the forwards on both teams will lay a bit of a platform for the halves. And I think Hynes is going to have to step up and do plenty of kicking and plenty of running the ball himself as well. The Sharks look so much better when he's taking the line on and when he's not just catching and passing. I'm even a little bit more confident here in starting Jaden Campbell ahead of Hynes. If I was to look for a pod play, I'd probably fade Hynes, and got some more faith in Jaden Campbell after seeing that he continues to impress in that 7 jersey. There was always a few question marks around how him and Brimson might pair up together in the halves there, but it's been all Jaden Campbell. He's been super impressive, and it's not just in attack. We know that he's going to run a lot. We know he's going to break tackles. We know he's going to offload. We know he's going to score tries, set them up and kick goals. But his defense has been pretty good over the last few weeks. His tackle efficiency for such a small body has been pretty high, despite making 20 or more tackles over the last couple of matches as well. So that's really impressive for a small half who's got so much attacking upside to be getting through 20 tackles and only missing, 1 or 2 each match as well. He's also kicking over 500 meters per game over those last 2 or 3 matches as well. He was only sort of getting the 100 or 200 next to his name last season. So while him and Brimson are still in the halves, while Kieran Foran is still out, Jaden Campbell's that dominant general play kicker as well. He's just got the whole game at the moment to put a really big score together. And we can see he's pretty cheeky in defense there as well with that 90-meter intercept try. That's, outstanding in terms of game day squad points as well. So they're my 3. You've gone for a similar option, mate?
Yeah, and before we jump into some of the stats there behind that, just an interesting discussion to have is obviously Keanu Kinney's got the neck injuries, had surgery. He's sort of due back maybe closer to the end of the year. Kieran Foran's still on the sideline, and we're not quite sure how long until he's back, but it doesn't seem like it's too far away. What do you reckon that makeup of that squad's going to look like when Kieran Foran comes back? Obviously, Jalen de Groot's there at the moment at fullback. He wasn't outstanding. We know he's got a lot of speed, but he's, we haven't seen him at the NRL level too much. So what do you think is going to happen? Kieran Foran come back and maybe AJ Brimson go back to fullback? Is that where you're probably thinking?
I think so. It'll probably be a couple of week trials. We know Foran is due back, anywhere in the next sort of 3 to 5 weeks. So de Groot's probably got, those 3 weeks to sort of impress the coach and show that he should be the starting fullback. Really, it comes down to a selection of, are we going to run de Groot at fullback, or are we going to move Brimson there and have Foran in the half? So do we want de Groot starting, or do we want Foran starting? Who's going to be the better asset for our team? I actually see Foran as being a decent 14 for them when he is back. That means they don't have to change their spine. De Groot should get a number of games under his belt before Foran is available for selection. If they throw him back into the halves, that's, moving Brimson out of position, and then Foran's coming back in after a bit of a spell on the sideline. So it could really disrupt some of their attacking proficiency. But again, that probably comes back down to how the individuals are performing and if the Titans are winning matches or not. If they're losing, we can probably expect a bit of a shakeup. But if they're winning, if de Groot's playing solid, he doesn't have to be outstanding, but he just needs to be, running the ball up well, making, clean catches from bombs and and chiming in behind the two halves when he needs to. If he's doing all the right things, then Foran could make a pretty handy 14 and sort of come on anywhere, even in that lock role or sort of a roaming extra half, or for an injury, anyone can move. Brimson can even, float around the field as well. So they've got probably a few more options with Foran as a 14. But yeah, it'd be quite interesting. I think the Groot's got a couple of matches to prove himself, and probably don't want Foran coming back in. That might shake things up a bit too much for Jaden Campbell in terms of his kicking output. So let's hope the Groot goes well over the next couple of rounds.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And that's why I kind of brought it up, is that JC is playing so well at the moment, Jaden Campbell. And obviously that's because of the chemistry that he has with Brimson and some of the other players around him. We don't want it from a fantasy perspective, where Foran comes back, pushes Brimson to that fullback role, and then that chemistry there and is diminished, and Jaden Campbell comes out and doesn't have as great a fantasy performance. For us, obviously it's all about winning footy for the Titans, but for us, it's all about that fantasy output. So we want to see the best possible options for Jaden Campbell if we're going to continue to stick with him week out. I guess the benefit is game day squad. You can clear your squad and start again the next week. So it doesn't matter too much. You've got plenty of options compared to some of the other platforms where you've got to stick with the players that you've chosen. So that's obviously another unreal opportunity there for coaches to be able to swap and change each and every week. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Jaden Campbell as well. I think he's had some really good games over the first 3 games for the Titans. He's averaging just over 66 GDS points, which has him ranked second at the moment for halves. And even if we take out those couple of tries that he's had in those 3 games, he's still averaging around 60 points. And that's probably 3 tougher matchups, I would say. Dogs, we know, have been defending really well. The Knights have been playing some really good footy, although the Titans did touch them up. And then the Roosters are playing, they've eased into some pretty good footy as well. And that game last week was actually back and forward, and it was up in the air for majority of the game. I really enjoyed that. So he's still scoring well against some of those tougher matchups, which I think is really good. He comes up against the Dolphins side this week, who have allowed an average of 47 points to right halves and only 26 points to left side halves. So again, he's got an opportunity to do some damage on that right side, but the benefit is he can always sweep across to the left as well, which we've seen. So I'm going to run Jaden Campbell. I'm also running Cleary. Obviously, he comes up against the Cowboys, who have allowed an average of 66.8 GDS points to right side halves. The Panthers obviously will be out to avenge those last few games. And I think I heard something the other day that they haven't lost 3 in a row since 2021. I might be wrong, but that's a pretty big stat if true. And obviously, they will want to right some wrongs over the first few weeks. If we take away his HIA game from round 3, he's averaging almost 63 points. Due to that 5 points in that round 3, coach has got to scroll down quite a bit. So, obviously we're picking players rather than looking at our average list and just picking whoever's at the top. But I'm sure some coaches are doing that. So there might be an opportunity for Cleary. And I've never thought I'd say this, but he might actually be a pod for some players. So that might be an opportunity there because he's so low on that average list. Then that last player you talked about is Nicho Hynes. And Mel knows how much I love Nicho Hynes. And I think he's going to have a pretty big game. He's averaged 57 GDS points with a high score of 73. So we know he's got that higher upside in him. He does come up against a Raiders team that is struggling a little bit, over the last couple of weeks when we talked about earlier. And they've allowed an average of 51 GDS points to right side halves so far this season. So I think there's a big opportunity there for Hynes, albeit I think there's going to be a pretty big forward battle early. And I think that maybe the back end of the first half, back end of the second half is where we might see some really big damage there from potentially both halves. And just touching on both halves there, obviously Fogarty is highlighted there. And I just wanted to touch on Fogarty. I am considering playing Fogarty across a lot of my other competitions and potentially fading either Hynes or Cleary in one of those two, just as a bit of a pod play as well. Fogarty comes up against the Sharks that have allowed an average of 59 GDS points to right side halves so far this season. So there's obviously an opportunity there for Fogarty to get a few points and probably get back up in those averages a little bit as well. He's had a couple of down games because the Raiders haven't played to the best of their ability from what we saw in those first couple of games. So if they bounce back, as you say they will, I think Fogarty's going to put them on his shoulders and he's going to have a big game as well. So I'm pretty keen to play him across a few of my competitions, and potentially he could be a pod for some players that are keen to fade maybe Campbell, Hines or Cleary.
So if you had a legend, Jamal Fogarty, you'd recommend playing him?
I'd probably play him in Classic if I was you.
Righto, let's get on to the centres, mate. I'll let you start off with your two centres. Let's race through who you're starting and a couple of reasons why.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump on the back of Holmes and Garrick again. I think I'm going to load up on Garrick one more time. I also like Herbie Farnworth again this week, but the matchup data is pretty similar between the Titans and the Storm in terms of the centres. So the benefit for me is Garrick is going to kick goals, and so there's that little bit of upside there. We know the Storm are a really strong side, and they've defended pretty well. They've only allowed 56 actual points to be scored on them across those 3 games. So we know they've defended pretty well so far, but I think that there's still an opportunity there for Manly to have a pretty big game. They're a bit of a rival going, all the way back to the Adam Blair days and, the brawls that they had on the side of the field there. So I think, there's still that rivalry there, and I think that'll be a pretty big game. Manly at home are a different beast as well. We've seen a completely different team playing at Four Pines compared to, what we saw over in New Zealand earlier in the season. So they're in form, even without Tommy Turbo at the back. And since 2022, Garrick's averaged almost 60 fantasy points against the Storm, and he hasn't scored a try in any of those games. So that's a big stat there. I think he lines up against Grant Anderson as well. He missed 3 tackles down the left side last week. So there might be an opportunity there for Garrick to just find the line again, like he did a couple of weeks ago, and potentially he's got a big score in him. So I'm pretty keen for Garrick once again. And then the other player I'm looking at is Holmes. He's got a pretty good-looking matchup this week against the Eels at Combank Stadium. And whenever we talk about Holmes, we obviously have to talk about his potential for a brain fade and his tendency to miss tackles or to make errors. However, this season he's averaging less than 1 missed tackle per game, and he's only made 3 errors in 3 games. So maybe he's getting that sort of part of his game out. And we're seeing a little bit more consistency from Val Holmes. We've seen him set up some tries. We've seen him score. And obviously he kicks goals as well. Last week he played against the Storm in some tough conditions. And he still finished the game on 44 GDS points. So, there's an opportunity there. The Eels had to deal with Garrick last week and they allowed 48. So Holmes and Garrick, they swap oppositions, and both players, I think, have a big opportunity to score well in round 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm certainly there with you on Val Holmes. You've said all you need to say. I think he'll be a very popular play by coaches, and the weather's a lot better this round as well. So we should expect a lot more free-flowing attacking footy, and Val Holmes will have his fingerprints over a lot of that for the Dragons there, and obviously kicks goals as well. So, yeah, pretty easy plug and play there for me. The other guy, I didn't even really consider Garrick, but those stats that you're rolling off are pretty interesting. Normally when I see a player up against the Storm or, the Panthers, it's pretty easy to just put a red line through them and, expect their matchup to be quite difficult. But those numbers, 60 points since 2021 or whatever it was, is pretty impressive for Ruben Garrick and playing in the centres as well. So, yeah, he'll probably be a bit of a pod play because people want to steer away from that Melbourne matchup. But, yeah, expect that clash to be fiery. And, can't fault anyone for wanting to plug Garrick in there. Dare I say it, I'm going to give Paul Alamotti another run in my team. It wasn't that bad last week. I sort of expected a lot better. We knew that he was kicking goals, which was fantastic, but we certainly didn't expect the Rabbitohs to race off to a 28-0 lead, and the Panthers really struggle after that. But Cleary's back, so I think that means a whole new Panthers outfit. It obviously means Paul Alamotti won't kick goals, but I think they're going to put on a much better performance and score plenty of points against the Cowboys here in some weather that should be a lot more conducive to attacking footy. The Panthers have lost 3 straight, like I mentioned earlier, so they're going to want to have a big game, and it should come pretty easy against this Cowboys side that have, led a lot of points to right halves, but also, 51-point average to all of those right-hand side players across the park as well. So I do expect Alamotti to line up on the right with Casey McLean on the left wing, and we know that Brian To'o's not there, so I think Alamotti, even had his 2 best games of the season on that right-hand side on the wing there as well. So should be in for plenty of work, and I think there's plenty of attacking upside, whether it's a couple of line breaks, some tackle breaks, or a try or 2. That wouldn't surprise me as well. So if I can get a try-scoring winger playing in the centre position with plenty of upside, then I don't mind that, particularly after he's going to be a bit of a pod play after a not so great score last round. But yeah, Herbie Farnworth is certainly a great shout. Again, like always, Bradman Best had a couple of great games leading into that bye. Obviously, their matchup against the Dogs is a little bit tougher. And I'm sure a lot of us will be playing plenty of nights regardless, either in the fullback position and or the winger position. So against a tough matchup like the competition leading Dogs, I don't think we need to plug in an extra night there as well. So Best is on the radar, but probably not for this week. So Holmes, Alamotti, Garrick, Farnworth, they'll probably all find a spot in my team somewhere. Yeah, pretty nice and quick for centres, mate.
Yep, let's move on to our wingers. And there's, for once, quite a bit of difference. Obviously, we've had a few differences across all of our positions, but there's difference between both of our players here, and I love that. There's some real opportunity for some pods, and I know we keep saying that word pod, and for anyone that is listening and does not know what that means, it is point of difference. So it's just an opportunity for you to have a different player to what majority of, or who we think the majority of coaches are going to play. So it's a real opportunity there to have some high risk with some high reward potentially as well. As you said, To'o's been ruled out, so we're looking elsewhere for some of our wingers. My first option is going to be Ronaldo Muatalo this week. He's had a bit of an up and down season. We've seen him have a low of 15 against the Panthers in that first game, and then he had a massive game a couple of weeks later against the Rabbitohs, scoring 82 game day squad points. So he's had another high score and another low score within that as well. So very much a roller coaster there from Muatalo. The Sharks are up against the Raiders, as we've talked about. It's going to be a massive game. The Raiders potentially on struggle street at the moment, looking for a bounce back. Maybe they don't get it, and the Sharks really put them to the sword. If they do, I feel like Ronaldo is going to be the beneficiary of that. The Raiders have allowed an average of 54 GDS points to left wingers already this season. So I'm going to load up on the roller coaster that we refer to as Muatalo and hope that he has a big game. And the Sharks really do put the Raiders to the sword there, which I have a feeling they might. They probably want to climb the ladder a little bit more as well after a couple of disappointing or less than favourable games that they've had so far.
Do you see any difference in that attacking play down the left without Kale Iro and with, is it Hirate coming in?
I feel like that's potentially better for Muatalo. We've seen Iro, I think, get over for 4 tries or 3 tries this season already. So I think there's an opportunity there for Hirate really just to catch and pass or to, potentially have that offload and maybe Iro, whereas Iro would have used his strength and power to get over the line himself. So I think that's a potential opportunity for Muatalo to score even better. But we'll just have to wait and see if that comes out. But I think that will be a point of difference there. I think that will be a bit of a pod, particularly based on some of the players that you're going to talk about in a moment. My other winger is going to be Greg Marju. And we talked about some Knights players that we're pretty keen on in the wing and fullback position. I also touched on there's a couple of players that I don't have bronze cards of. And unfortunately, I still don't have a Fletcher Sharp. I am still looking for a Fletcher Sharp bronze. And if I had that, I'd be running him instead of Big Greg. But I think he's the next best winger in terms of who's available and their matchup. The Knights are up against the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are obviously flying. They're at the top of the table, but I have high hopes for this game to be a bit of a classic. I feel like the Knights sort of lost the plot against the Titans, and they'll want to come back and have a strong performance and show why they should be in the top 8, similar to what we saw earlier in the season. Marju as well, he's averaged 6 tackle breaks per game. He's had 4 offloads per game, and he's had 170 odd meters per game. So, even if it's a tight tussle and Greggy's required to do some more work and take the ball up through the middle, etc., I think that only helps his performance as well. Bulldogs have been defending pretty well, but they're still allowing an average of 42 GDS points to left wingers. So I think, Big Greg should have an opportunity to score a few points there. And I'm pretty happy with the Muatalo-Marju combination, but I know that there are potentially some better options out there as well, and you're going to talk about a couple.
Well, all I've done is gone to the stats center. I've gone filter by position winger, and I've gone sort by average. The top 2 averaging players are Fletcher Sharp with 66.39. And then would you believe Christian Tuipulotu, 53.67. So pretty simple play for me, just plugging and playing the top 2 averaging players. Now, there's a reason they're at the top of the average list, despite only playing 3 games. They've both been really rock solid in teams that are going quite well. We obviously know that Fletcher Sharp is playing out of position. He's playing the number 6 jersey for the Knights, but eligible as a winger. And I think if you've got a Fletcher Sharp card, you're looking to play him as often as you can. We know that he tackles a lot. He's making 24 on average in the past couple of matches. He's got some pretty good tackle efficiency again for a smaller half as well, just like Jaden Campbell. He's had 5 and 6 tackle breaks in the last 2 matches, and we know everything is going down the left for the Knights as well. His link-up play with KP is unreal, and he's got an uncanny ability to turn a half break into a full break with his speed and his link-up play with Best outside him, who's in some fantastic form, and KP as well, who we know is just absolutely electric and outstanding as well. So, yeah, Fletcher Sharp, there's no wonder why he's well out there in front in the averages, playing out of position. In fact, he's 13 points ahead of Tuipulotu in terms of overall averages for the winger position. So, bit of a no-brainer. If you've got a Sharp card, you play him. He's just got that level of safety with that high floor, high ceiling as well. We know wingers pump out some pretty low base if they don't get any attacking stats. So that's the safety that Fletcher Sharp provides. I don't. If you look at Tuipulotu's recent game against the Storm, you probably wouldn't be interested in playing him. Yeah. But he had a really good start to the season against a couple of opponents that were a little bit leaky and let in a few points. And he plays the Eels this week as well, who we know have let in plenty of points so far this season as well. We already like Val Holmes because we know a lot of the ball goes down the left through Gutho and then Holmes. Who's on the end of Holmes? It's Tuipulotu, and Holmes has already put him over for a couple of tries this season already. He's got 3 tries in his first 2 games before the down game against the Storm. But like I said, a Storm team is red hot, and a lot of wingers probably don't score very well if they don't get any attacking stats. So happy to put a line through that and back the money man in for a couple of nice runs from his own end with plenty of tackle breaks, but also hopefully dotting down and finishing a couple of tries in the corner there. His matchup with Zach Lomax will be an interesting one. Zach Lomax could be an option to play as a centre as well. As a centre playing as a winger eligible in GameDay squad. I think he's going to have a big game himself. He's got plenty to prove coming up against his old team, which is going to be quite interesting to see. You'll know that he'll want to fire. You know that he'll want to win, and you know he'll be playing until the 80th minute trying to get that win. The only thing I'm concerned of, and probably leaning towards Tuipulotu over Lomax, is that when Lomax tries to do too much and force his hand, it leads to way too many errors, and too many errors is just way too many demerit points in GameDay squad. He made 5 errors last week just because he was trying to throw that miracle last pass and do things that not many other people would even attempt. They just probably tuck the ball under their arm and surrender in the tackle. But yeah, those 5 errors and 15 demerits or is it even 20? I can't remember, but that's too many alongside that negative number next to him. So I think he'll have a great game. He'll have a lot to prove. I wouldn't be surprised to see him score and kick a few goals against that old club. But it's Tuipulotu for me at the moment. But I don't think I can leave Lomax out for that big blow-up game. I'll probably plug him into one of my teams. But he's a great player. We haven't seen the best of him or the Eels yet, but he's still going really well without even scoring a try. If we filter the wingers by tries scored, he's way down that list there. He hasn't scored any. There are so many other wingers with less averages than him that have scored. So he's obviously doing plenty of work with base.
Yeah. And just a question, which will segue into the fullback position. You're going to run Holmes and Tuipulotu from the Dragons. Is there any thought around stacking the Dragons side there and playing a Gutherson as well in the fullback if we think they're going to be so dangerous on that left side?
Yeah, there is some thought, but only one of them can get the try assist. Only one of them can score the try. For me, I'm going to load up on the Holmes to Tuipulotu, but the fact that Holmes kicks the goals as well is probably the reason why him linking up with Tuipulotu for me is going to be a better option with Tuipulotu on the wing rather than plugging Gutho into one of my 3 fullback spots where I probably got some better options there in the fullbacks. Gutho has been really impressive, but he's even said that he's been labouring a little bit. He's struggling a little bit with some leg soreness, and he's obviously getting a little bit older. And you know, he's covered in strapping tape at the best of times as well. So I just think we've got a couple of better options maybe there in the fullback position. And Gutho has had some really good impact on some games, but he hasn't always resulted in points when Val Holmes is catching and then tipping on to Tuipulotu as well. If you're a Gutho owner, you'd want Gutho throwing that cutout pass to the winger or putting Holmes over into the corner himself. That just hasn't quite happened for Gutho yet. But yeah, still a nice play. He's certainly someone that's been on the radar and probably someone that could be a shout in a number of teams, and that's why we've got him there on our fullback list. But we have opted for three players. We've opted for the same three players, haven't we? In Tedesco, Pappenhausen, and Ponga. There's a name there at the bottom. How about we start with the new name that has been added to our list, and that is 1L Mitchell. He makes his return to the NRL in 2025 from a hamstring injury suffered in the preseason. We know he's an absolute weapon. He was a superstar last season. He averaged the most in the fullback position last year. And you'd want to play him when he's got the number one on his back just about every single week. But we know he's lining up in the centre this week. Does that change things for coaches, do you think? Or might that have a positive impact on his game?
Yeah, and there was a bit of chat in the Discord about that earlier today. I think for me, the concern is, and he is named at the centre at the moment. He's been training at centre, but coaches like to play a few mind games, and we know Wayne Bennett is the master of mind games as well. We saw that a couple of times last season with the Dolphins and their switcheroo. I think it was against the Broncos in that game there that they changed every position 1 through 13 almost. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does move back to the fullback role potentially, but based on sort of the what we've seen, if he comes out at centre, I think for me, I'm just going to sit and wait and watch. We haven't seen him play in the centre since State of Origin 2021. So, yeah, that's a little bit concerning for me that we know what Latrell can offer. We know what he does with ball in hand. Does he get more ball playing at centre? Probably not. Will he need to make a few more tackles? Maybe. Does he often go missing in games? Yes, definitely. So I just want to see what he looks like at centre. The other thing for me is they come up against a Roosters side that have been pretty solid against centres on the left side. I'm pretty sure, we talked about it earlier, I'm pretty sure he will be on the left side. Is that sort of the mail that you're getting?
Yeah, I think that's his favourite side. It's where he plays. Jack White is just going to have to be the odd man out here and move over to the unpreferred right. But you want your best player on the best side of the field, and that's just Latrell Mitchell there. He's absolutely devastating. He's likened to Gregory Inglis, and putting him out of position is only going to be worse for your team. So yeah, Trell on the left if he is playing the centres.
So if he is playing in the centres, he's playing on the left side. The Roosters have only allowed 31 GDS points to left side centres so far this season. Obviously, we look at those centres, they are a completely different kettle of fish when it comes to Latrell Mitchell and in terms of an NRL player. But for me, I'm just going to sit and watch. He comes back from that injury. He's playing at a position. It's potentially a little bit unfamiliar. There's different connections there through the field. Although we've seen the Bunnies play some pretty good footy, I just want to sit and watch 1 week, I think. And we've said that a few times, and those players have gone out and scored massive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he scores well. Will he kick goals? I would probably tend to think so, but who knows as well. That might be something that he works up to a little bit later.
Yeah, 75% conversion rate for Humphreys, which is good, but not great. If the Rabbitohs, want to win the close games, they're going to need a bit higher kicking percentage than that. So, if Trell's been named, if he's good to go, then there probably shouldn't be any reason that he's not kicking goals, given his quality of kicking. And he's someone that just loves to be in and around the game, and having the T and the goal kicking responsibility is only going to be a good thing for his mind and for his game and for our game day fantasy scoring as well. So, yeah, he might just be on that left side of the field, so he doesn't have to get involved in every single play. He's probably for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe while Campbell Graham is out injured as well, and while he's coming back from that hamstring, just gets to maybe pick and choose his moments a little bit better rather than sort of having that responsibility of, every single time he touches the ball, being expected to do something flashy. I guess like a bit like Reece Walsh, and why maybe he's, becoming a bit unstuck lately, trying to do the miracle play every single time he's got the footy instead of just sort of getting the head down and just doing the simple stuff. So maybe, Latrell's just going to have less impact in terms of the amount of touches, but each touch is probably going to be better than the previous. And Toya and Dominic Young, although the numbers suggest that they're going well, they certainly haven't defended up against a quality centre like Latrell Mitchell, and I think they're going to need to have plenty of numbers around the ball if he is playing on the centre. And any space, Trell's just going to get that big fend out, and he's going to get through that line pretty quickly, and he's probably going to get plenty of tries with Jai Gray backing up or Tass on his outside. I can see him having a big impact on the game. Even if he only has 8 to 10 touches or 8 to 10 runs, that might be enough for him just to get some confidence. Maybe not enough for our fullback spot in GameDay squad, but we saw what happened with Spencer Johnson. That's probably a name that reminds us about someone coming back from injury and just wanting to look at them once and not playing them in the Oz cricket season. But that certainly didn't pay dividends. I think some people will play Latrell Mitchell, and it'll be a risky play, but we might all be scrambling to fit him in our sides next week because he just looks unbelievable. Or maybe the Bunnies have turned an absolute corner after that big win against Penrith last week, and now the confidence with Troll back. They think that, okay, well, we're a chance here. We're not just going to be the easy beats like a lot of people thought we might be.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it past players to want, or coaches to want, to play Latrell. If we look at the couple of players that we've got there in Pappenhausen and Ponga, they've both got some pretty tough matchups based on GDS scoring allowed so far. Manly haven't really faced an elite fullback in terms of the first few games of NRL, and they've restricted all fullbacks to an average of 36 GDS points. Pappy's obviously very different to the likes of CNK, Weeks, and Iongi, but Pappy loves to get his hands on the ball, and so far he's had 4 tries, 10 tackle breaks, 5 line breaks, and that's only after 3 games. So he's probably got an opportunity, but I could see why some people wouldn't want to play him because of that, that Manly defense and what they could produce against fullbacks as well. And the same sort of stat line there for Ponga. He comes up against the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs have allowed a low of 14 against fullbacks and a high of 36. So that's some telling stats. Again, just like Pappy, Ponga is a completely different player to someone like Keanu Kinney, Iongi, or even Will Kennedy, who those scores have come from so far. And Ponga leads all fullbacks on his average score, which is made up of 4 try assists, 5 line breaks, and 13 tackle breaks. So I could see a world where you might look at some of those stats and go, yeah, maybe I might fade one of them, not play both of them in a tough matchup, and go with someone like Latrell, because we know how dangerous and how damaging he is, because he's that bigger body type player, and we know the tackle breaks that he can make and the potential that he has. So I wouldn't put it past anyone to maybe fade one of those two. But for me, I think the lock of the week is James Tedesco. He comes up against the Rabbitohs, and we've talked about they're looking a little different. They're playing a little bit different, but they've still allowed an average of almost 60 GDS points to fullbacks in their first 4 games. The lowest score was against the Rabbitohs was Dane Laurie's 42 last week, and we know what Penrith threw up at the Rabbitohs. So I think that's some telling stats there. Teddy's averaging 54 GDS points in 4 games, and he hasn't even crossed the try line yet. So he's got an opportunity. He's leading the fullbacks with tackle breaks with 25, and I think that's only sort of 2 or 3 behind the GDS leader in Payne Haas, and I think who else was Jesse Ramey, and I think they had about 28 and 29. So he's not too far behind them as well. So it won't be long before one of those tackle breaks from Teddy turns into a try and or try assist. So I'm going to lock in Teddy, Pappy, and Ponga, and be a little bit nervous about not playing Latrell.
Yeah, both Teddy and Ponga haven't scored this season, which is pretty unique for them through sort of 3 or 4 matches. So you'd expect them to find the try line in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, Ponga, that matchup against the Dogs, the stats certainly don't read well, but he's that one guy that you really don't want to leave out of your side because of how explosive he can be. If the Knights get a little bit of momentum, a little bit of a roll on, he can put some big plays back to back pretty quickly. If there was one that I was fading out of those 3, it probably would be Pappy. He has scored those 4 tries, so 4 more than both Ponga and Teddy. and he's still only averaging the same score as Teddy with those 4 tries. He's kicked 2 goals as well. Does he get the goal kicking back this week? Maybe, but we saw Wishart do a decent job with duties last week while Pappy was still nursing that slight injury that he still managed to get through the game fine. Maybe he gets the tee back, which would obviously be a nice little boost to his score. But yeah, he's when the Storm make a little break, he's sort of there or thereabouts. So that's when he's got the really high upside, similar to Ponga as well.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to fade a player that can go on those big, 70, 80, 90 meter breaks. And we know that the Storm are such a good attacking outfit, and they're going to score points each week. And that typically means, Pappy's there or thereabouts as well. He hasn't had that huge, massive score, even with those couple of tries against the Eels. You probably would have expected a much bigger score. He obviously didn't do much at all in the second half, and obviously the game was in the bag, and that's obvious after being up by 50 points near the break. But yeah, Teddy going about his business really well, breaking plenty of tackles. He just heart and soul from the first to the 80th minute, and I think this might be the week that he does score a try in that nice little derby there against the Rabbitohs. If there was, a bit of a pod to play, Gutho, we mentioned, earlier that he's got a decent matchup there against the Eels. But if you're already loading up a number of Dragons, you might want to diversify a little bit. And Laurie with Cleary back is, he's a bit of a different player. He obviously struggled last week. But with Cleary back, we should expect some far better things from that. So yeah, pretty wide open there in the fullback spot. We've gone pretty safe, which is, I guess, somewhat typical of the way we tend to play our fantasy sports. But pretty sure, I could almost guarantee those 3 won't be the top scorers. I just can't tell you who's going to be the top 3. So I'm just going to go for the safe ones who will be there or thereabouts, and maybe not at the very top, but probably won't be too far from the top. So that's, the safety that I'm looking for. Lockie Armstrong reckons Walshy could pop off. We haven't even mentioned him. We're just sick of mentioning Reece Walsh and spending 5 or 6 minutes saying, is this the round that he pops off? He's got this matchup. The conditions might be favourable. He was poor last week, which means he's going to turn it around this week. We've been saying that for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's just not happening. So I think the less we mention Reece Walsh, the better. He's more likely to have a good game if we don't talk about him, and then we can spend a bit more time talking about him next week after he obviously kills it this round.
And if viewers or listeners joined us during the Oz cricket season, I did have a theory about players. Every poor score is 1 score closer to a good score, but I cannot subscribe to playing Reece Walsh until I see a good score, until I see him do something of merit and not demerit. I think that's the big one for me. Good luck to anyone that plays him. Probably don't watch that game, though, because I feel like you might be disappointed in his performance. Alrighty, so let's jump across, have a quick look at our team, and then we'll finish off with our Bro Down Showdown. You can see there a couple of differences, particularly in that wing spot, and then the hooker and a couple of our middle and edge forwards there. So a couple of differences. I'm up against the GOAT, so I'm a bit concerned. I'm playing the greatest of all time. I feel like I might not come away with a win there. And Stewie, unfortunately, you've got that eliminated stamp across your team. Oh, right. Well, the good thing is we move on and we go again for another week, and we also go again for Bro Down Showdown. Do you want to talk us through what happened last week, mate?
Viewers will not recognise this graphic. They normally see you with your hands over your face in a bit of anguish after going down. So you've got the shush face out today with your first win in 5 weeks. Congratulations, mate. Well done. There he is, Nico Hines. Melissa will love that. He's finally picked Nico, and Nico has outscored Cherry Evans. Terrell May was outstanding. Did outscore Payne Haas and didn't even need Tommy Turbo in the end. He didn't score very well, obviously, through that injury. But Pappy did give me a little bit of respectability there with a 2-1 defeat. That means, of course, that I will have to open up a 3-player pack. Dill is going to be able to pick 2 cards to keep himself for winning the 2 points. And one of the cards will go to the viewers. So Dill, how are we going to do this? We're going to pick the winner first, or do we want to look at the cards first?
Let's pick the winner first, and then we'll go through the cards. So if you picked me to win, well done. Congratulations. Thank you for riding with me each and every week. Let's spin that wheel. You will find your name on there, and you can potentially win one of the cards that I pull here. And it looks like it is our mate, JT. Unreal. Congrats, JT. So let's jump back over. And Stu, you can bring up the pack there for me that you were going to open.
All right. So we got 3 cards here on screen. Every 5 rounds, we actually open up a unique pack. Dill's been opening up some rares over the last few weeks, and just so happened to have to open up a unique pack this round. So, Dill, 2 for you, 1 for the viewer. What are we going to do?
Mate, I just can't see it. Do you want to have a crack at trying to share that again for us?
Interesting. How are we going? Nothing?
No. Oh, hang on. Here we go. I've got it. Here we go. Alrighty. I'm going to select the middle for JT. So we're going to do JT's first.
All right.
You can all see the pack now. There it is.
Gordon Chan Kum Tong.
Ooh, tough there for JT. Sorry, mate. We might have to hook a little bit better, although he might be a star in the future. The dynasty aspect there, but probably not the card we wanted. Alrighty, let's hit up the left and right cards for me today, mate.
Left, we've got a Phil Sami. Oh, and we got a diamond on the right.
Here we go. Come on.
Sammy Hughes.
Not the doggy that I wanted, unfortunately. Still looking for that. Jacob Preston. All good. All right, JT, hit us up in the Discord and we will sort you out with a card there. And then finally, this week's Bro Down Showdown. Now, look, Mel, to be honest, I really didn't want to go Hines, but I couldn't help myself. I feel like he's going to have a big game. And I kind of picked him just for you, Mel. So I have gone Haas, Hines, and Tedesco. And then Stewie's gone May, Cleary, and Sharp. So if you think I'm going to get the chocolates once again and continue my winning ways, then you comment Dill in the comments on either YouTube or Facebook. If you think that Stewie's combination of May, Cleary, and Sharp are going to dominate, then make sure you comment Stew. If you are right, then you go into that wheel and you could win a card, and hopefully it is a little bit better than some of the cards that we can pull there. Yeah, Mel, I agree. I can't go against him when he is winning competitions for me, so I'm going to keep running with him until he puts in a poor performance. I think that's fair enough to say.
All righty. Hey, thanks very much for joining us once again, everyone. A couple of new faces in there tonight, which was fantastic to see, and a couple of the regulars, which we absolutely love as well. Thank you very much for joining us once again for the Round 5 live show. We'll be back again next Wednesday, April the 9th at 7 p.m. for the live Round 6 show. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember, make sure that you're following us on our socials at FantasyBros AU. Make sure you're commenting who you think is going to win that Bro Down Showdown between Dill and I once this video gets uploaded to YouTube. And you'll be in the draw for winning one of those prize cards, one of those cards from the packs next week. Remember to make sure you're using that code FBRL25. New users get 3 free common packs just for using that code. So get your friends involved, join in the fun, and good luck for those in round 2 of the GDS Cup. Thanks again, Dill. Good luck this week. Good luck, everyone else. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See ya.